Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sara Gonzales. What was the top story for you, Mr. Glenn Beck?
Top story today is the second coming of Christ coming to a country near you.
Is it Canada?
Right.
Should we book tickets? I'll go with you.
Racist. You'd assume it's Canada instead of Mexico. Unbelievable.
That's true. You're right.
I'll go with the national emergency and the Democrats tipping their hand a little bit.
All right. And Andrew Heaton from Something's Off with Andrew Heaton.
The draft.
The
NFL?
draft. Yeah.
Yeah, that. Okay. Yeah.
I'd love to hear Andrew's take on the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Actually.
I saw that Zeki is getting recruited for basketball, and then I was like the Secretary of the Interior, and then it was Zinke. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Before we tackle all of that, I want to thank our sponsor, American Financing.
American Financing is a company that I started doing business with 2008, actually, right after the crash, because I had said to this finance company, hey, we do mortgages. And I'm like, everybody does mortgages now. You can get them and cash checks. I said, I'm not going to represent mortgage. And the only company I do is this one, still from 2008, because after the crash, all of their customers were fine because they didn't shoehorn them into something they couldn't afford. If they look at your finances and if they don't think that this is wise or right, they did it to Stu. He was doing some sham.
They were like, hey, idiot, this isn't going to work.
This is not really a good idea. We don't want to do that. They don't jam you in. They try to do the right thing by you. They close really fast. They're really great. It's AmericanFinancing.net. AmericanFinancing.net.
All right. So, Jesus. We need him right now.
Jesus is coming.
We need him.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me that in a country that is supposed to be pretty religious, that I'm not hearing this everywhere. That, when the Democrats in 2012, voted against God 3 times in their platform. I don't know if you remember that, but it was pretty shocking. And especially, we're just going to ask you 3 times. Not 2, not 4, 3 times they had to deny God. And if you look, before that, they were crazy, but they were all still kind of in hiding. And then it just started getting crazier and crazier and worse and worse and worse until today, where we're like, yeah, what? So what? It's a baby. We don't like the look of it. And they're willing to kill them. Pretty crazy. And it's happened really fast. Well, yesterday, by not voting to not kill children, I don't know where God stands on the vote balance. I'm not really comfortable with only 53 votes against that, but at least it was a majority. But the Democrats, including every single presidential hopeful on the Democratic side, refused to say, yes, that's a baby, we shouldn't kill babies. I think this is a sign of the imminent demise of any kind of divine providence and protection, perhaps for the country, but definitely for the Democrats. The Democrats, I think, have revealed themselves for who they truly are. And once you're in bed and you're willing to say that, can you think of anything more horrible than, well, yeah, it's a newborn, so we snuff its life. What's the big deal? We just leave it in a closet to cry and starve. I can't think of anything more horrific. Where do they go from there? Because you don't go to Happy Town, USA from there. You just get darker and darker and darker. I think the Democrats, who are my friends, Democrats who are in the center of the country, that are not these progressive socialist, now baby killers, they better wake up, because their party has had a hostile takeover, and it's going to go downhill fast from here.
Stu, you want to weigh in?
I'd like to believe that they think there's something else. There's something else in this bill, and it's a slippery slope. And I think that that was certainly the argument they made on the floor, right? Which was, look, this is actually going to weaken doctors, and it's going to hurt health care for women. But the bill really doesn't do that. The only thing it does is if a doctor were to have a live baby that was born, again, after a failed abortion, so this is born and it's alive, if they did not treat it, they could get sued by the mother. That's how the real damage to doctors in their health care. Look, I think there was an argument that they were making that this is just a show vote, right? This is just trying to get people on record for this thing, and it's ridiculous. We already have a law on this, but the previous law is somewhat shows how far we've gone, because this is 2002, and in 2002 the same thing passed without the one additional step of saying you had to have medical care. So it defined a baby that was born after a failed abortion as a human being with the rights of a human being. And that was in 2002. This added on, well, you also have to treat it, which is kind of, I think, implied in the first law, but not specific. So, it's important to be specific on such a thing, I suppose.
588 cases of these since 2002.
That we know of.
That we know of, where doctors just put them in a closet and let the children die. Just neglected them. 588 children. That's 588 too many. That is murder. That's murder.
But again, this bill in 2002, which did essentially the same thing, passed with zero no votes from Democrats.
How many people were running for president at that time?
Apparently not enough.
I think most of this is posturing, and you can get mad at people for posturing, particularly if it involves infanticide. But I think that's what basically is going on. Is no Democrat running for Congress wants anything, or running for president wants anything that looks like it might be anti-choice in any capacity.
I would agree, although that only describes, that's only 5 of them. Right. So, I mean, you've got, you still have a lot more. What was it? It was, the final vote was, I think, only 3 Democrats voted against, or with the Republicans.
Yeah.
West Virginia.
Yes, West Virginia, Casey, Pennsylvania family, obviously famous.
Alabama, right?
And Alabama, right? Which, again, 2 people. I mean, Manchin's been consistently in the middle, sort of, and Casey's has a pro-life history. Jones, we don't know exactly, but he obviously is running in Alabama for the Senate, so he kind of falls. I'll give you that one.
Jones would be a Republican in 47 other states.
I have to tell you, you can't tell me. I mean, what would make you say, "Oh, I'm going to vote for the presidential election"? Is there anything that would make you go on record? I mean, this is the lack of the fear of God in our nation now. What would allow you to have a record with your name attached to it for all time that you said, no, we don't need to resuscitate or cuddle or care for or do anything to a baby that's been born. We tried to kill it, we missed, so we're going to let it die.
I mean, I think it does say a lot about. It does say a lot, really quickly, about our society, as you were saying, Andrew. If this is posturing. I mean, that says a lot. That's that's ballsy that you're willing to do that to posture because you think it will make you look better to the American people.
Now go ahead, play ball.
Well, so with this specific bill, like if we were to take it out of the kid zone, right, and just say we're making a bill that's against the law to commit murder on a federal level, I think I might vote against it, not because I'm in favor of murder, but I would just go, this doesn't sound to me like it should be a federal law. So I can see instances.
Murder is a federal law. It's a federal offense.
Is it? Why not? It's not handled by state authorities?
No, because you could murder somebody in one state and then go to another state and get away with it.
All I'm saying is I could see situations where there would be something that may not be.
But why not just reinforce it? I mean, if it's what you believe, why not reinforce that by voting?
Yeah, you could. that would make sense. I don't know. I'm just tossing out stuff of situations where I could if you were saying we're going to swing really hard and we're now going to have a big federal program and lots of money to pay for all these things. I want to get into the weeds on
that's different. That's different.
I think that's true. I mean, because there is a risk of, because everyone kind of theoretically agrees on something like this, that you could to show how tough we are on it, we create a new federal program, and that could
the Patriot Act. That's a huge mistake. What, are you for the terrorists? No,
right.
I'm not for the terrorists, but that's not this case.
Yeah, this case, I mean, I think, look, to make it simple, SAS kept it simple and put very little in this. I mean, it really is a very simple bill, and I think because there is I think a lot of Democrats would say this is sort of apocalyptic. But I think there is a real legitimate fear among Republicans who see person after person after person from the Democratic Party go on television and defend abortion up to the last second, and then multiple politicians and bills passing over the last couple of months that say, you know what, well, it's the choice of the doctor and the mother of whether they're going to resuscitate an infant that was actually born. I mean, again, the choice argument to me really, I always think it's a bad argument. It's not my issue. But I mean, even if you believe in it, all the way up to birth, there's no more involvement for the mother. The child is already exited the body. There's no connection. The cord's been cut. At that point, there should be an easy realm to defend that. And I think even, again, third trimester abortion is already opposed 80 to 14 in this country. There's no reason why you can't get to this level to come across and say, hey, we see this line creeping too close to this. Let's make a definitive wall here, if you will, and say we're not going to go past this. Let's acknowledge what we should all agree upon. The fact that we apparently don't all agree upon it is a little concerning, to say the least.
I want to go ahead and move on to the national emergency.
Yes, so the vote is, we're in the middle of these votes for the National Emergency Act. I'm very much on record thinking this is a terrible idea for a million different reasons. But to just, in case, you're kind of coming to this and thinking, well, you must be light on the border. I think the border is a very important issue. And I think we do need border security, and I think we do need, a rule of law on the border. I do think our immigration system is very highly screwed up. But if you have what's going to happen now is Trump's doing the national emergency. The House can vote to overturn that emergency. If the Senate agrees, which I think they likely will, it will go to Donald Trump, who will then veto. Which
I would, at this point, that makes sense. I think.
Right, exactly. Now, again, this is not
definitely
how it was,
what our founders intended.
Yeah. Well, and it was not even what the people who passed the National Emergency Act intended. They wanted it just to be a simple majority that got overturned in the Supreme Court. So Trump can veto it. It will go back to the House. I think they have a very tiny chance of overturning the veto. It's not 0%, but it's pretty darn small. I think, though, what I've kind of been interested about the last 24 hours as this has developed is the Democrats in particular, what do they actually want out of this, right? They keep saying they want Donald Trump. They want to overturn this. And I think that in their minds at this moment, that's true. They don't want a wall. They don't want him taking the money. They don't want him taking this control. However, the big picture is I think they love this outcome. Mm-hmm. They are salivating at the chance to be able to use it and exploit it to the maximum extent possible.
Oh my gosh,
many of them
over and over and over again. We're saying it today. Climate change, guns, and healthcare.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear that at the same time that they're saying that they're going to try to overturn it.
Right. Yes. No. I know. I think they.
Well, they're saying because it's not a national emergency.
Right.
They're not saying we disagree with it. They're saying we disagree that it's a national emergency.
This is exactly where I'm going, because if they actually, it's not that they disagree with giant power out of this one figure that the president was never supposed to have, right? They just think this particular thing, we actually think it's an emergency that not enough people are coming in, right? Like, I was saying this on the air earlier today, like, people are like, well, we get a wall and it's permanent. Walls fall down. They knock them down all the time, all over the world. This is not a crazy thing. The second a Democrat gets in there, they will have a national emergency and saying, we are killing people on the border, and they'll knock the whole thing down, and you'll get nothing out of this.
Not true. Ask the people of Berlin. Anyway, what were you saying?
Beyond all of this, though, if you were serious, if the Democrats really oppose this, you know what they'd sound a lot like? They'd sound a lot like Mike Lee. And this is what Mike Lee said about the particular Emergency Act. My initial assessment is that what President Trump announced is legal. Whether or not it should be legal is a different matter. Congress has been ceding far too much power to the executive branch for decades. We should use this moment as an opportunity to start taking that power back. This is not a one issue about the border. It's not an issue about how even the precedent that we're setting here for Democrats in the future. It's an issue about the Constitution specifically says how this is supposed to be handled, and we've decided that it's okay. We can pass enabling acts to override the Constitution. It specifically says Congress must handle trade. It specifically says they must handle the power of the purse. And just because Congress decides to vote that they want to hand that power to something else doesn't mean they should be able to. I think that all of this stuff is unconstitutional, and we should get back to the Mike Lee version of this, which is, hey, you know what? Congress needs to do the things the Constitution specifically says it should do. If we all decided to vote, we don't want, we shouldn't allow ourselves to have freedom of speech, for example. Well, you can amend the Constitution and take the freedom of speech out of there, but you can't vote yourself out of a right like that. That's not the way that works.
So that Mike Lee guy you're referencing wants to sort of maintain the integrity of the institution rather than use power as a football going back and forth?
It's a crazy idea, Andrew. But
good luck to that guy. Yeah, good luck.
No, but seriously, I do want to. I'm interested to get the libertarian take on here. I feel like you'd be right on board.
I 100% agree with all of that. I mean, I don't. I think the basic premise of allowing the president to declare a national emergency whenever he or she doesn't like the outcome of Congress is like putting Mad Libs in the Constitution. That's just a horrible, horrible idea to do. Don't do that.
An emergency declaration should be and I'm not in favor of them, but it should be like the declaration of war. The president has the right, in my opinion, to say, we've got to go to war right now because we've just been attacked. But then within 30 days, he's supposed to go to Congress and say, I need you to finance this. After 30 days, without a declaration of war, we're not at war. And all that money should be piped down and should be shut off. We don't do that anymore. That's the same thing with a national emergency. If he needs to act quickly, act quickly. But the Congress is the one that has the purse strings. And it's not the Senate. It was important to the founders that it has Congress because they are the ones supposedly closest to the people and the easiest to unseat. They're the reason why they have the checkbook.
All right, back in a minute.
I might have Mike Lee on my program on Tuesday. I'm excited. I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, seems like a pertinent issue.
All right, before we get back into it, we want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. So I know Glenn used to just live in constant pain. And when you live in constant pain, you just want to like jump off a bridge all the time.
Yeah, you do. It's just...
It affects every part of your life.
Yeah, you're grumpy all the time and you just don't want to do anything and you just get to the point of like, well, this isn't worth living like this. I can't live this way anymore. And I was like that about a year and a half ago. And I've been dealing with it for almost, 8 years now, 9 years. And I was just done. And my wife said, before you do anything stupid, like quit your job or something, just take this, try this.
We were this close. Oh, jeez.
Blame
on Tanya.
Blame Tanya. So we tried Relief Factor, and I told her, I said, it's not going to work. It's all natural, and that crap never works. Yeah, why don't we try some natural oils?
Some horoscopes.
Yeah, right. But this did, and I have a problem, and we all do. If you have pain, inflammation. This helps reduce inflammation, and they found that it works about 70% of the time for people. So if you try it for 3 weeks and it doesn't work for you, if you're not out of pain, it's not going to work for you. If it does, you should order more, and that's why 70% of the people they go on to order more month after month, like I have.
Yeah. All right, so go to relieffactor.com. The three-week quick start pack is only $19.95. So like Glenn said, 70% of the people keep going on to order more. That's worth $20 to find out if it can work for you. Andrew, you had a question for Glenn.
A question for Glenn at the beginning of the program.
Wait. So today's segment of the Blaze Why.
Nice.
Yes, today our question will come from Mighty Heaton.
Mighty Heaton.
At Mighty
You can
Heaton.
follow me on Twitter.
Yeah.
I made some comment about a German rat earlier. I used Twitter for what it's designed for. What I wanted to ask you, Glenn, was at the beginning of the program we were talking about the anti-infanticide legislation, and you used a turn of phrase that I thought was interesting. You said that you thought divine providence might be retracted or taken away, and so, I was curious as to,
Yeah, so there's a couple of things on this. I believe we are a country, I know for a fact that George Washington made a covenant with God, a 4-hour kneel in prayer with everyone who attended the first inauguration, a covenant in the little church that was across the street from the World Trade Center, the one that had never had the windows shattered or anything. It survived somehow. And that is where he knelt in prayer for 4 solid hours and made a covenant. We will be your people, you will be our God. And that guided us and I think protected us. And many presidents, including Abraham Lincoln, felt that covenant was in effect. And in his second inaugural address, he said, it's God's will. We have done these things and we are going to pay a price for this. And if it's God's will that he washes us clean, with all the blood and all of our treasure, then so be it. I believe we have had this protection for a long time, and we have strayed further and further and further and further. I think when we get to the point to where we are a nation that can't say, yeah, we shouldn't kill our own children, I think that covenant is over. I think we've broken that covenant. And that doesn't mean that, God's going to punish us. It means you're on your own, guys. You're on your own. England does this. France does this. They don't have a pact with God like we did. One more example. Around the same time that we were making this covenant with God, Haiti did exactly the opposite. And Haiti made a covenant with Satan. They wanted to stop slaves, the slave trade, and they couldn't kill the French. And they couldn't stop it. And so the slaves got together, all the witch, the voodoo stuff, and they made a pact. Same time. Now look at the two paths. Slavery stopped. They chased the French to where? New Orleans. New Orleans, with all of its dark magic and everything else, that city is kind of screwed up. But that came from Haiti. Haiti has been a country that has never had a break, ever. I've talked to the people around the president of Haiti. He knows it. The people in his administration know it. We're talking about going down and bringing a bunch of real preachers, not fakey preachers, real people of God. The president of Haiti wants to get down on his knees and do exactly what George Washington did and break that contract with darkness and make a new covenant with God. And I think when you do that, I think that country will turn around.
Andrew?
Out of curiosity, with the Byzantine Empire or the Roman Empire, is it always a covenant that's broken where the covenant's not formed?
Nope. No, we made a specific covenant. The only other country that's had a covenant like this is Israel. The ancient Israel had a covenant, and they broke the covenant. We are a covenant nation. There's only been 2 in the history of the world, us and Israel.
I mean, I feel like most European nations for the last 1,000 years up until 1700 would view themselves as explicitly Christian and far more theocratic than us.
There's a difference between saying we're a Christian nation and dedicating this nation and dedicating it in the proper way with a covenant and saying we are forming this nation to serve you. They honestly, and some of the biggest scholars on our founders, they rejected this notion when I first expressed it. One of them came back a year and a half later, with a book saying, yeah, it is true. I think you're right. that our founders believed that one of the reasons why we were supposed to be formed is we were going to be instrumental in the reestablishment of ancient Israel. And so they made that covenant to do his will and to bring about what he wanted and to reestablish the ancient Israel. And they believed that we were actually the new Israelites. They believed that the pilgrims were actually a continuation of the exodus from Egypt away from the Pharaoh. And now the Pharaoh was in England and they came here, and this was the promised land. So it takes on a whole different view because it's not just Christian. It is the Old Testament and the New Testament. It is Israel and the promised land and the Jewish people all rolled up into one.
Stu, I feel like you and I needed popcorn.
Yeah.
Watch this back and forth.
So this is fascinating. For those of us that aren't a part of that, like, are we dragging you guys down?
Yes, that's what we've been saying.
We didn't want to tell you, but yeah.
No. It's not. No. It's not that. It's not that we have to be. The founders fought for everybody's right. They fought for everyone's right, even to be atheist. It doesn't matter. Are you a good person? However, the nation must have a good moral foundation to it. When we start killing children, there's no one that can look you in the eye with a straight face and say, oh, we're doing the good thing. Not even God's will. We're doing the right thing by killing children. No one can say that. You've stepped over a line that no covenant could exist with that.
All right. Got to take a break. We'll be back.
If you know New Orleans and you've seen the playoffs the last 2 years, you know they are cursed. That is absolutely true. Notice I had to target that joke at Sarah.
All right, don't forget, for those of you who are watching on YouTube or Facebook or any of those places, we have a little thing called overtime that we do here every
Me and
single
Sarah
day.
have long esoteric conversations.
Yeah, we do. We do.
That's what we do.
Yeah, I mean, usually about sports.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys want to be here.
Yeah,
if
let's
you
talk
wanna
about that. We'll
go.
just continue our conversation about divine providence. And
Okay, great.
I can dump in